Stick around to the end of this video to learn the pro tip on exactly how much space you should be giving a defender. 1. In a game, the referee will hardly ever call a foul on you if your arms are up and against an opponent. The trick here is not to grab them or have your hands on them. At a young age, they teach you to keep your arms by your side. However, if the referee is not going to call your arms being up in a game, then use this to your advantage. Extend your elbow and your shoulder to engage with them. It is crucial that you make yourself look bigger because it makes it harder for the opposing player to travel around you. Having your arms up will make it easier for you to place your forearm against their body and use your shoulder muscle to keep them away from the ball. When you watch professional defenders, they tend to use their hands and arms a lot because in most situations, the referee will not call anything against them. Notice in the image how the girl in the red is pushing the attacker off balance, which will result in a terrible pass. Alright, that second tip on knowing when to be more physical is you gotta ask yourself, which defender are you? Are you an outside back and there's plenty of other defensive backs that are between the net and the ball? Or are you that last defender and it's a 1v1 situation, that attacker against you? Asking yourself that question allows you to determine how aggressive and how physical you should be with that defender. If you are the last defender, and this is a general rule of thumb, you do not want to dive in for the ball. I'm talking 95% of the time, unless they take a touch that's too big or too bad, then you know for certain that you're gonna be able to get the ball. That's fine to dive in, that's fine to lunge in and get the ball. But in most situations, you wanna be backpedaling. You wanna be attempting to wait for them to make a mistake, or you wanna be able to stop their shot. Because if you do lunge in and you miss the ball, you just gave a breakaway to the opposing team. Now, you stand a chance between the ball and your goalie. You have two people there. You have your goalie that's gonna block some shots and you have you that blocks some shots. But as soon as you get beaten with it's a 1v1, it's a lot harder for your goalie to stop the other team. So ask yourself, what defender are you? If you've got a few more behind you, then feel free to be more aggressive and lunge in. And if you're the last one, you wanna make sure that you're avoiding lunging in unless they make a mistake with their dribbling and you know you're gonna get the ball. So that third rule is understanding why lunging changes your momentum. So the tip here is that anytime you lunge in for the ball, your momentum is now going forward while that attacker's momentum is still going towards your net. So your momentums are different. So if you go and you miss that ball, it's gonna be very hard for you to go from a lunge or a sprint to a full stop, back to a full sprint to be able to stop that defender, and they're gonna be able to quickly blow by you and have that 1v1 against the goalie. So again, try to stay in between them unless they push that ball too far in front of them and you can easily take it, but avoid lunging in if you're that last defender in most circumstances. So now, as a defender, if you're lunging in for that ball, there's two skills that a forward can use that is gonna be a nightmare for you. So if you think you know one of those two skills, or even if you know both those skills, comment below, take your guess, and honestly, I bet you're not gonna be able to guess both. I think you might be able to guess one that's good to use when that defender's lunging in and that forward, that striker's trying to get around them. So now that fourth tip, and that's it is appropriate to lunge in and to be a little bit more aggressive if you do have at least one, if not two defenders behind you, and that one attacker is by themselves. Now, obviously, it's game situation dependent, and if there's four attackers and it's just you and another defender, probably don't want to lunge in that situation. But if it's one other attacker and it's two defenders, that's more appropriate time if you're that first defender to be able to reach in and try to steal that ball. Because even if you miss, that other defender is going to be able to help, and ideally, that other defender is going to at least slow that player down. That allows you to help get back and recover your position and again take your shape. So anytime that you have a numbers advantage, or at least it's a 2v2, 3v3, those times are more appropriate to step in because you've got support behind you. So it's completely appropriate to try to lunge in, get that ball, be more physical. So now, in soccer, there is an appropriate time to foul. And I know there's a lot of American leagues, a lot of soccer organizations that really emphasize don't ever foul, don't ever foul, don't ever foul. And as a kid, I completely understand that. You don't want to get fouled, you don't want to be that person that's fouling. But if you look to European soccer, some of the best soccer players in the world, and you look to South American soccer, also a lot of very good soccer players, you notice that they use what are called tactical fouls in a game. So that means when they're team is at a disadvantage, they purposely go into foul to buy their team more time. So imagine this. The other team is counterattacking. They're just crossing the 50-yard line. You've got 2 defenders and they got 3 forwards. But you're one of those defenders and you're close enough to the person with the ball that they go to push by you, they successfully get the ball by you. What do you do in that instance? Do you just let them go by and now it's a 3v1 against your other defender? Or as they're trying to sprint by, you stick your leg out too far and you commit that tactical foul? Well, honestly, it depends on what you want out of the game. If you want to win, and again, a foul is a part of a game, I don't really recommend fouling too often, but there's certain situations that you do want to use a foul. And one of those situations is what I just mentioned. So you foul him, what happens? You get a yellow card, and remember, a yellow card, though not fun to get, is just a warning. So don't worry too much about getting yellow cards, worry more about after you've gotten a yellow card, then that chance, that opportunity for a red card, you need to play a little bit more reserved. But use your fouls to your advantage. Avoid them in the 18-yard box. That is the worst time to foul because they get a free kick from the penalty spot and it's almost guaranteed, we're talking 70, 80, 90% that ball's going in. But outside the 18, that other team has a better numbers advantage. That's a completely appropriate time to look to foul another player on the other team to slow the speed of play so that your team can come back and get into perfect defensive position. So now, what do we want to avoid? Well, it's always going back to that numbers. How many attackers does the other team have? How many defenders are on your team? You always want to have a numbers advantage, or at least tied in numbers, or if there's 3 defenders against 4 forwards, that's still appropriate. There's enough people on the field that a mistake can occur, and you as a defender can recover that ball and get it to a teammate. So, some things you want to avoid is being too afraid to make a mistake. Mistakes, though you don't want to make them, you'd much rather be a wise person that learns from someone else's mistake. Don't be afraid to be a smart person, someone that learns from their own mistake. Now, you don't want to be a dumb person, a person that keeps on making the same mistake over and over again and never learns from it. But it is okay to be a smart person, a person that makes a mistake, learns from it in a game, and doesn't do it again. Now, mistakes occur. Mistakes, so many people see that as a bad thing, but it's a difference in mindsets. Are you going to be that person that's okay with making mistakes and constantly learning from them? Or anytime you make a mistake, you're going to crumble under your fear and your regret and your dread of making that mistake, and now the rest of that game, you're not as good as you would have been if you were okay with just wiping that mistake out of your mind. All right, so that pro tip that you've been waiting for. The big thing here that a lot of defenders don't do is they're always lining up the exact same distance from the attacker, no matter who the attacker is. But you gotta keep in mind, depending on who the attacker is determines how much space you're gonna give them and how physical you are being with them, and in which direction their body is facing. If you have an attacker that's receiving the ball with their back to the net, you better be behind them, you better have an arm on them, you better be very physical with them, not giving them the time to breathe, turn, giving them any of that space. You do not want to be doing that. But now, say you're playing against Lionel Messi, you're playing against Cristiano Ronaldo, you're playing against Neymar, and they're attacking you at pace, at speed in front of you. In those instances, you're almost better with them trying to shoot from the outside and give your goalie a good 18, 20 yards of time to be able to save that shot versus them just blowing right by you. So against those really good attackers, you want to give them another half yard, maybe even full yard of space so that you prevent yourself from getting blown by too easily and you make it a little easier for them to decide to shoot from the outside. But now if someone's attacking you and they're not that skilled, you want to be very close. You want to be almost harassing them and using your arms against them. You want to be nudging them and getting them off balance. Doing those things makes a big difference, and asking yourself what type of attacker you're going against makes you way more high class than a lot of players even on your own team. So how do we practice being more physical? Well, honestly, in practice, you should make sure that you're being a little bit more handsy. You're getting your forearm against that teammate of yours that you're defending against. You want to be able to practice things in practice so that you can do them in a game without even having to think about it. And now, I totally know what you're thinking, that most people on your own soccer team in practice don't like to be that physical. And now, I'm not saying you should be physical in terms of trying to hack their ankles, trying to trip them, anything with the lower body. I'm saying avoid there. You don't want to hurt your teammates. But in terms of your your upper body, getting your arms up, getting your forearms against them, pushing them around. Anytime their back is facing the net they need to score in, applying a ton of pressure. That's all stuff you can practice. And if they start to get mad at you, just take them aside and explain to them. Have a conversation, have the dialogue, letting them know, hey, I really care about making this team a lot better. And I know you do too. In order for me to play better defense against other teams, I need to practice on my skills, on my physicality. So is it okay if I'm more physical with you, not in your lower body, not with your ankles, not trying to chip you, but with the upper body, trying to push you off? I don't mean any harm. I'm simply just trying to get myself better so I can make the team better. If you want to learn more about how to be the best defender in the league, then grab the 5th book in the Understand Soccer series, Soccer Defending, today on Amazon.com using the link in the description below. Now I ask Soccer Squad, please leave any feedback on how I can make these videos better in the comments below, and let me know if there's any topics that you'd like me to cover in the future. And if you could, hit that like button below and the subscribe button and bell notification icon to ensure that you do not miss out on any future videos on how to build your soccer confidence.